Usually when you're looking at the national recruiting rankings, you go like that and you find Florida. This year, you run down the list and run down the list, and you keep going and going and going and going, and it takes forever to find the Florida Gators. Pick your service. The Florida Gators are pretty much off the national map at this point, but only 8 commits, but we've got some quality there, and we want to talk about what could be in store for the next 2 weeks for Mr. Jim McElwain, the new Florida head coach, and we discuss it with David Waters of SEC Sports Insider. David, thanks so much for joining us. Let's start right there because it's only 8 commits. It's far less than most the major schools that are in the high teens, close to 20. 3 ESPN 300 guys, so there is some quality there. Can you run down those 3 guys that are on the map right now?
Yeah, the big one I think is probably Derek Dillon. You mentioned him. We talked previously from Louisiana, but the scary thing about him is he visited LSU this past weekend. Kind of a scary thought, the home state guy visiting LSU. There's some Florida's still confident they can land him from everything I've heard. They through talks and through some insiders, they believe he still really wants to go to Florida, but LSU really put a hard press on him this past weekend. But wide receiver, is Florida needs all the playmakers they can get. So I expect a full court press from Florida on this guy. Being from Louisiana, it's a lot like Florida. They don't have as many, but those top athletes are just as good as those Florida guys. So, he's a big get. They got a tight end committed from here. It's hard to pronounce his last name. Motor Behabi, I guess. I know.
Hopefully, you're going to have to learn it for your sake and for Florida's sake.
I've looked phonetic, and there are too many different. Nobody can seem to agree on how to pronounce this guy's name. So, they're gonna under McElwain, they're gonna make him more of a pass receiver tight end. He's not gonna be asked to block too much for his size. But he's an early enrollee, so that's good. They can get him there in spring. Florida had a major dip at tight end production last year. Jake McGee transfer from Virginia went down in the first game last year. Never really even got to play for Florida last year. But he did get a 6-year of eligibility. So I call that a really good, if you want to call it, commit that he's coming back for Florida. Going down the list, Tyler Jordan from right here in Jacksonville, from Bishop Kenny. He's offensive lineman. Florida's really short on the offensive line. Only 8 returning starters from last year's team, 2 with only starting experience. So he's a big pickup. He visited his past weekend, committed with a couple other offensive linemen. So he's trying to make a connection, trying to get some more guys to come in with him. Because everybody knows Florida is very short there on the offensive line. So he's one of the big guys. They definitely need to bring in. Brandon Sanford was one of the guys that was another offensive lineman that was with him this past weekend. So those are the 2 from this past weekend. The offense, it was kind of centered on the offensive line. McElwain wanted to get them all in together, hopefully let them create a little bit of bond, pull the guys that are not so committed to Florida, maybe soft verbals, guys that are looking at Florida, trying to get a little bond to get those guys in there. And Andrew Ivey, defensive tackle from the state of Florida. His brother's already on campus. He's a Gator as well. So that one's probably going to stick for sure. So that's like you said, there's only 8 right now, not many to talk about, but hopefully the ball gets rolling in the next couple of weeks.
So, David, you mentioned Derek Dillon, athlete who visited LSU this past weekend. Hopefully for Gator fans, he stays in the fold. The 119th rated ESPN 300 player, 8th rated athlete out of Louisiana. You talked about Tyler Jordan, center. 3rd ranked center in the country, and also we've got another offensive lineman, Mike Horton, a guard, the 23rd rated guard out of Atlanta. So you mentioned the offensive line needs for this Gator team, and they bring in hopefully 2 of the best if they can get them signed on National Signing Day. The offensive line a big need. Can you talk about any other areas of need that you really think need to be addressed?
Yes, and I'll finish that with the offensive line. Martez Ivey, probably the overall number 1 offensive lineman in the country. he said today that he's going to visit Florida this weekend. Everybody thinks he's a Florida lean, but of course the whole Auburn thing kind of jumps in now. He visited Auburn last weekend with all the other big time recruits, so that's a little bit of a worry. But yeah, like you said, offensive line's the need. He's the #1 offensive lineman in the country. They need to get. But yeah, for positions of need, well, I said it earlier. Wide receiver is definitely a position of need. They need to bring more in. Like you said, Dillon's committed. You're going to have a few more on the radar. Ray McLeod, he's a commit to Clemson. I don't think Florida will be able to pull him in. It's kind of a foregone conclusion. He may take some other visits. Hearing rumors he was going to visit Alabama this weekend. He shot that down today. He's not going to go to Alabama. The Ryan Davis is a guy from St. Pete. Everybody pretty much thought he was going to go to Florida. He's one of the other guys that visited Auburn this past weekend, and rumors are now he was really impressed with them. So Muschamp's doing his magic there to get the guys who want to visit Auburn who are really Florida targets that can get in. Offensive is need, so Florida's bringing in 2 running backs actually this weekend from the Miami area, Jordan Cronkite and Jordan Scarlett. From what I've heard, there's a very, very good chance Florida could flip both of those guys, especially Cronkite. He's a little slash playmaker. But for McElwain's sake, I really think Jordan Scarlett is the guy that he needs to flip. He is the Trent Richardson, Mark Ingram type McElwain coach at Bama. He is that mold. He can come in. He can break the tackles. That's the guy McElwain needs to get, I think. So, like I said, the offensive line, that's definitely the position of need for the Gators, or the offense in general.
Okay, David, so a few of those flips would help this prediction. I'm going to predict, not knowing nearly as much as you do about the Florida recruiting situation at this point, that with only 8 commits right now, 3 in the ESPN 300, so it's not so much an issue of quality, it's quantity, that a current class rated 85th in the 24/7 Sports Composite is going to be the highest riser of any school in the country. I'm going to make that prediction right now because there's no way that Florida's going to fish with the 85th rated class in college football. I would be shocked if they're outside the top 40. It's not going to be a banner class, but McElwain's going to close well, I believe, and get some of these commits in the last couple weeks. To raise it from 85 to maybe not nearly where it's expected to be most years for Florida, but in that respectable range to compete with some of its rivals in the SEC East. Who are those couple guys, and you probably mentioned a few, that you would like to see sign on the dotted line that are very iffy right now?
Yeah, I'll go back to Martez Ivey again, the offensive lineman. He's definitely the top of Florida's list, top offensive lineman in the country. Need the help there. 2 big ones, Byron Cowart, C.C. Jefferson. Byron Cowart from Tampa, C.C. Jefferson from down the road here, Jacksonville and Baker County. Both of those guys on the defensive line thought for the longest time to be Gator leans. Those were a couple more of the guys who visited Auburn this past weekend, and now everybody thinks those guys are up in the air. It's kind of funny that they wouldn't commit and go with Muschamp at Florida, but as soon as he goes to Auburn, Auburn's in the mix now. So, it seems the losing culture here in Florida had something to do with that. Now, they can go to Auburn with Muschamp and Malzahn and maybe, but Muschamp's, big deal here at Florida. He would get all those guys on early visits, but he couldn't close them. And that was his big problem here at Florida. Florida fans are hoping the kind of same thing happens here. He got them early, Byron Cowart, C.C. Jefferson, 2 guys Florida needs on defense. But, those are the Ivey, Cowart, Jefferson, thought to be longtime Gator leans, could really, really shoot this class up. But there are some other guys kind of under the radar. Gator started talking to Sharif Miller not too long ago. They offered him last week, and many think that offer shot Florida straight up the list. He's from Pennsylvania. Jabari Zuniga, he visited this past weekend to Florida, and he said as soon as he saw the swamp, he fell in love. So a lot of people think now that's another guy. So the defensive line seems to be the deepest position that the Gators can probably sign some guys to shoot up the charts. Jeffrey Holland from here in Jacksonville, Trinity Christian High School. He another one that visited Auburn last weekend. It seems a common theme. It's going to be a recruiting war between Auburn and Florida in 2 weeks. That much is known pretty much now. But Holland's kind of has thought to be a long time Auburn lean and a big time Muschamp supporter. So most people think Florida's going to lose him. But yeah, those are the main guys. Adonis Thomas is another one, probably going to Alabama. He was a Florida commit at one time. Now Florida's trying to get him on one more visit. They think, if they can get him one more time, they might can flip him back to Florida. But pretty much probably going to stick with Bama. But yeah, the three main guys: Ivey, Cowart, Jefferson. Florida can get those guys. I think fans will feel happy. Shoot up the rankings. I think it's important to note, and like you said, numbers aren't really the important thing for McElwain right now. He needs to get guys that can come in and probably just play right away. There's depth issues at certain positions where the Gators just need guys to come in and play right away.
There's a whole lot of talent down there in southern Georgia, southern Alabama, northern Florida, but a lot of geographic proximity between Auburn, Florida, Florida State, and then if you go a little bit further, you bring in Alabama, South Carolina, and Georgia. So a lot of schools, top-notch schools expected to win, fighting for players right there within just a couple hundred miles. So it's very interesting to see who goes where. David Waters, doing some work for SEC Sports Insider, joins us here on Mark Rogers TV to break down the Florida recruiting class. David, hopefully we can flag you down after National Signing Day to look at those firm commits and signings at that point.
Oh yeah, that's going to be fun. And that day, it's either going to be great elation for Gator Nation or great disappointment. So we'll see what McElwain and the staff can pull in.